So many things happening today. Welcome to Wayne's World and Kelly. And it's Shark Month, baby. Thanks for the gifts, people. And there's a couple other ones that I don't know where they are. But I like that people recognize that we do celebrate attorneys and their contribution. And I love Lisa McGill, our wonderful, esteemed super attorney that's coming to talk to us today for Shark Month. It's also the 100th episode. So Wayne, I'd like to congratulate you. You are now part of the elite members of podcasters that have, the average is a little bit less than 3 shows before it goes away. Now you've accomplished 100 shows. You are now a triple-digit podcaster.
Well, back at you. And it's people like Lisa McGill coming on and providing good education and knowledge for things that are going on in our industry. And I think we got a lot to unpack today. Welcome, Lisa. Thank you for coming on. This is your second appearance. That's how much we love you.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to be here. Glad to be here for Shark Week. And I got my little, Sharky thing because I only had one T-shirt and I used it last time. So
and you sparked something to where now when I'm at events and attorneys come up and talk to me, they're like, I've been given a shark gift from another law firm, which I thought was just fantastic. And you started the whole shark. We started the show because we were copying the Discovery Channel. They do week, we do month. But then you brought your A game with your shirt. And then I think someone else after you came on with like a hat or something. So, I mean, I love the bar getting bigger. And, so I'll be drinking from my little sippy shark water thingy and playing with my little thing, a little game here. It's absolutely adorable. And I think it's also one of those squeeze toys. But more importantly, a lot of legislation has been going on and a lot more has to happen down in Tallahassee. But one of the great things about living in Florida is we are a take action state. It's not perfect, although the weather is, but it's a challenge. And we don't pregame our shows, and we were just pregaming for too long this morning because it's a lot of details that have happened with a lot of this legislation that's come out. And the bottom line, I'm confident that Tallahassee is doing their best to protect the consumer, to protect our great state, but it's a challenge when it comes to condo stuff. I mean, there's so much going on. So, Lisa, do you want to take over and hit some of the highlights of what you see that came out?
Yeah, I mean, you're so right. First of all, in Florida, it seems like the law changes every single year. And on the same exact point of law or statute, it can change one year, then change a little bit differently the next year, then change back to the previous version the following year, and so on. So in some, cases, people call it like a lawyer's annuity type of a system. But think about where these laws come from. We have legislators, they go out to their constituents and they hear, what do they hear? They typically hear complaints from community association members, the condo owners or the HOA owners that have been, quote, victimized by their community association. And in some cases, I mean, they're 100% right. I mean, think about that Hammocks case. That's where a lot of these laws came from, where, several millions of dollars later, and the fact that the law enforcement was stifled for months on months on months in conducting the investigation. Well, what do we have as a result? I mean, we had the law enforcement personnel go up to Tallahassee and tell them how difficult it was for them to do their job and how much wrongdoing they discovered when they were finally able to do their job. So of course, Tallahassee's going to respond. So that's where this year, the major points are official records, access to official records, transparency, financial transparency, conflicts of interest, and criminal penalties for certain types of activities. And we're seeing, and plus education. So they're hammering both community association managers, CAMs, and community association board members with education. Nothing's wrong with education, but we all know that any volunteer board member that wants to be educated can be educated every single day of the week and probably get breakfast, lunch, and dinner, as an aside when it comes to the education. So there was no issue with community leaders or volunteers having access to education, access to free education. Now it's mandated for both condo and HOA directors. CAM education, another thing. They're hammering CAMs with education, which any CAM out there also knows that they have the ability to be educated pretty much every day of the week, depending on how much time their board is going to give them to actually attend and participate in the educational events. And the official records, the access to records, what's going on financially with these community associations, and what the owners are entitled to know, see, hear, understand about it's their money. I mean, they pay every single month or every quarter into the community association, and really they are entitled to know what's going on with their money. So that's really the backdrop of pretty much all the laws this year. I mean, there are some other, Picayune requirements, and there are some important things as well, but I think it falls into those major categories: the education, official records, financial transparency, financial operations, and the education component.
I hope one thing that they do next time in the legislators' agenda is media, because, and we touched on a little bit when we were talking about it a couple days ago, the information that the media puts out is often lopsided, and it goes after the emotion aspect. When, we tell our clients all the time, it's full disclosure, we are an owner's rep project management firm, and we go in with large restoration, renovation, beautification projects, and we help them through the process, protecting them, I often say, from themselves and everybody else. We want to make sure that they're going to get everything done correctly, and we take it to a very high standard, which I hope all owners rep firms do. And I am always questioning when people protest too much that they don't want to send, but now I think the law is going to help with some of the disclosures, but then people need to understand the disclosures. There was a spot on TV last week from one of the Miami TV stations, and they did not do a good job talking about the information. They acted like everybody was against this property, which I'm not going to mention because I've got my attorney with me today. But you can go to DuckDuckGo and find it on a search engine, where it was a very one-sided, ill-informed report, where they need to discuss everything, and people need to kind of calm down, not get emotional, and understand what is going on everything that has to do with your condo. But the biggest thing is it's communal living. You all own the building, you all own the common areas, and then you own behind your walls. And there's things that you can and cannot do. And if you're not allowed to have a pet there, don't have a pet there. If you're not allowed to, whatever it is, you have to follow the agreements that you have. But we also have to make sure all the other participants play well in the sandbox in that community, whether it's a vendor coming in, the property management that's managing it, the property manager, or what we call CAMs, community association manager, that is the little city mayor, to make sure everything goes well, the public works director. What are some of the highlights of one of the several things that came out that concerns you, or that made you either happy or you didn't like the law enough?
Okay, well, that's two different things. Well, let me go back to your comment on the media. Really, I mean, the legislature can't control the media, so they're going to do stories that they think people are going to want to hear. And I think, obviously more sensational to talk about some older person who now has a $35,000 assessment and a condo that they bought 25 years ago, and now is struggling from financial constraints, rather than talk about the fact that every single year for the last 35 years, every board was cutting corners trying to make their assessments as low as possible because they didn't want to buy the green bananas,
Right.
And your podcast is an example of counter media. I mean, this is one way people can get information that is not, just sensationalized for the viewer, or the prurient interest of the viewer, let's just say. So you're never going to win that argument. I mean, again, that's not even where to go here. But one of the things
It just frustrates me. So why not mention, if you own your own single family home, you have to maintain that house. When you have a 400 unit high-rise condominium on the ocean, and the group has to maintain it. And if you don't maintain it, at a certain point, you have to pay for it. And unfortunately, with deterioration of concrete, the price escalates. We always tell people, listen, after I had a very high-end property manager, they weren't high-end, the property that she manages is high-end. In a fairly new building, she says, oh, we're going to seal and repair, seal, and paint every 10 years instead of every 7 years. It's not necessary to do it every 7 years. And I'm like, I have nothing to, most people don't call us in on that type of activity. If you take care of your building that way, you may never have to call us in to do a deal with a major restoration. That difference in 3 years is unbelievably expensive. That's all I'm asking, that counterpoint on those stories. Maybe it's not through legislation, just through pressure from, Wayne's World and Kelly, but the whole story always should be told, good, bad, and indifferent.
No, there are studies that have been done that show the exponential increase in the cost to repair if you delay those repairs, or if you don't attend to the repair right away, meaning like you just patch it as opposed to conducting an actual repair. So there's definitely, there's data out there on that. Whether or not
you don't have to repair if you're doing it every 7 years. It's minor, just a minor touch-up repair, and then you seal and paint the building.
Right. I mean, you're doing the repair as the repair is necessary, or it's maintenance. At that point, it is preventative or ongoing maintenance as opposed to a restorative repair. Exactly. And you're eliminating the need for some of those significant repairs by conducting the maintenance. But
I think we're doing. We got to get a little bit back to what Lisa was going to ask. We're kind of getting, or answer. We're kind of getting off here. A little bit more on 10.
That never happens.
CAM and CAM firms' conflict of interest, which is something that every one of us that are involved in this on the business partner side and our clients and everything. I took a look at the bill, and wow, I've never seen anything like this. What do you think, Lisa, as far as both of it, both of the components, CAMs and the conflict of interest with management companies, and the liability that the CAMs could have as far as what goes all the way to a third-degree felony, I guess, for some financial chicanery that could happen. Tell us what that's all about.
The disclosures are definitely enhanced this year. I mean, completely enhanced. And there are, as you said, financial, not only financial, but possible criminal penalties for failing to make those disclosures. So CAMs have had the obligation, or CAM firms, community association management firms, have had the obligation to disclose their relationships or business, community vendors with whom they have partnerships or financial relationships. So what you see is on a management contract, it could be a 10-pager, it could be like a 27-page contract, and you see a big old paragraph somewhere near the end that says, okay, we have relationships with all these companies, and then they have a list 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 100 companies, whatever they are. And that's the disclosure. So if you have a company on that list and some kind of repair comes up and it's within your authority as manager to just go ahead and effectuate the repair, let's just say it's like a plumbing leak or something, and you have the authority to just hire somebody to get it fixed. You don't have to go through a whole board meeting and competitive bids and what have you. You just get it done. Well, if you use one of your partners that's listed on that 13th page of the 27 pages, then no problem, you've disclosed it, right? Well, now there are more steps or more hurdles to go through in order to do that. Now, emergencies are emergencies. So, I mean, let's leave that out, because if something happens in an emergency, you got to take care of it. But let's talk about bigger projects. For anything that's over $2,500, not only did you disclose it in your original contract or your original management contract, you have to now obtain competitive bids, and the bid or the contract that with whom the company or the person has a relationship needs to say that there is a relationship. What does that mean? Well, if you're the consumer, if you're the board member, it doesn't mean a whole lot, because you don't have dollars and figures. It's not going to say, hey, Happy Land Roofing is going to get paid, is going to pay us 10% if we hire them. No, it's going to say, we have a relationship with Happy Land Roofing, and it's always explained, hey, we have huge buying power, you know, and market saturation. So with Happy Land Roofing, we're able to do the volume that enables Happy Land Roofing to lower their prices for you. So it's all a win-win in the long run. Everybody works out. What if you want to know that detail? Will they provide it to you? I don't know. I doubt that they would. And whether is that required under this law? That's not 100% clear. So not only, okay, so they're gonna have to provide you with a competitive bid if something costs more than $2,500. That's number one. They're going to have to include the conflict disclosure on the contracts and the minutes of the meeting at which the board decides to go with that vendor or lets that contract, and also in the agenda for the meeting. Plus now homeowners are entitled to see the contracts that the board's going to be voting upon, you know, in connection with the meeting where they're voting on the contract. Here's the issue with that though. A lot of times when, especially with a big project, a board goes through the process, they do the bidding, you know, and then really when it comes down to the meeting, they're selecting the vendor. They're not actually voting on the specific form of contract, because at that point, then the board says, okay, Happy Land Roofing, we're going to use you for this project. And at that point, Happy Land Roofing is either already submitted a form of contract, or the attorney for the association prepares a contract, and then it goes back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, until you have a suitable form of contract that everyone wants to sign. But there's no secondary vote at that point. I mean, the board's
Right.
already voted to go with that vendor and to sign a contract subject to, you know, their attorney's advice. So when you go to that meeting where the board's going to select the vendor, the bids, you know, may be are made to be available, or you have the opportunity to see the bids, but sometimes there is a hesitation to allow access to the bids until the contract is let, because then, of course, all your competitors will have access to those bids as well and can start, you know, start making side deals or coming in with, you know, new bids or trying to negotiate or what have you. So this is going to be a challenge. This is definitely going to be a challenge for the DVP. It's going to be a challenge for the DVPR, particularly where I see it as a challenge, you know, for my business, is all the owners that are now going to be making record inquiries or sending in certified inquiries saying, well, how much money is Happy Land Roofing getting off this deal? And how much of my money is going to you to go to the hockey games with Happy Land? And, you know, I see you on the internet, you know, on fancy boats and, you know, doing all kinds of, you know, great fun stuff, you know, as a board member.
Who's paying for that?
Does that influence your decision? Is that why we went with this vendor? Because you got to go on some fancy boat? Or, you know, did you think that they were the best? And you know what? It could be both. I mean, it could be, hey, I like them because I went on the fancy boat, and I like them because I think they're the best. And that could be fine, but that's all going to be disclosed. And from my perspective, I have to deal with all the people and the record inspections and the inquiries and going through the DBPR, because they don't know either yet. I mean, they haven't had the opportunity to develop protocols or policies on what constitutes adequate disclosure, right?
Oh.
I mean, where do you guys see problems surfacing as a result of this?
I see a ton of them that could surface, and everything that you mentioned was spot on, and which is a concern. And what we want to see is just see everybody do everything correctly. And I don't know if this legislation meets it. That's why I said I think the intent is always great, but the devil's in the details. We jokingly say who sponsors our show, and there's, you know, Wayne is with ABC Roofing. I'm with LGC. Wayne is also with my God.
Where do you work, Wayne?
Wayne, help me out.
It's just fun watching you struggle. It's a company that I'm a part owner of. It's called the Terminator Group. It's just
I'm totally blank on the Terminator Clip. It's a senior moment, but And then, but then like on all of our things, we just tag a bunch of people that we know that we like, but they have zero affiliation with any of us. You know, it's just a joke because everybody has sponsors for stuff. We don't. Nobody gets paid. No one's making money off this. We do this out of our desire to make the industry better. It's like, okay, now are we going to be vulnerable saying, oh, look, you know, you say that Callaway Water sponsors your show. My granddaughter's name's Callaway, and I use Callaway golf clubs, and I also say they sponsor. They don't give us anything. I still think with the clubs. I'm hoping that all this legislation gets all the rats out of the room, but people can still function and have a life. And it's important for people to have a good relationship with the vendors. I always tell people, I'll bring anybody to the table that's good and honest, but you got zero from us as far as you getting the bid. That is the board's decision, and we will not steer them on anything except for, you know, we do this checklist and we vet every single client real time, or every vendor real time, and then we're going to give you the information to make a good educated decision. But and we want that for everybody. But what I don't want is some board member getting his windows or his tile or his carpet, you know, anything that's being done in his place for free because that board member steered the other board members to use that particular vendor on anything.
Well, and that's a whole nother level of problem right there. So we were just talking about relationships between the management companies and the service providers. We didn't even touch the surface of what goes on between the service providers and the board members. And
right, let's touch it.
I really hate to hear this, but I've heard from industry people that said flat out, their board member said, yeah, you'll get the job if you do X, or, you know, if I can get Y. And
right.
To me, that's unfathomable. I mean, you know, again, these people are volunteers. It's very, very important, and it's a very important job. It's a very important fiduciary responsibility. And it just pains me to hear that we have those types of side deals going on. Now, you know what, an invitation, and the kickback rules are anything of value on the condo side or the HOA side over over $25 or not affiliated with an educational or industry type event. Okay, so a lunch, a lunch at even Houston's or something could cost more than $25. Right? Does that mean that you can't go out to lunch with your clients? In the past, you know, I know people have said that runs afoul for attorneys, for sure. It runs afoul of the kickback rules, but try to ferret that stuff out. And how many law enforcement people do you think are going to be, you know, checking Facebook every day to see who's at the hockey game with who, and, you know, that kind of a thing?
It's very frustrating. There's business as usual, and then there's bad players. I know with us and our business, it's not really happening because we're so open and transparent with our clients to make sure that nobody's playing bad in the sandbox that way. But there's a lot of other projects. Unfortunately, a lot of them, like the less the people that feel they can't afford our services. I don't know what's going on, and it's tough to police. It's a challenge. I just want everybody to do the right thing. You know,
there is a way that the boards can handle this, and make sure that they don't cross over any kind of a line. There's a way that everybody can do this, and it's really simple. Quite often, and I'm sure it's the same with you, Lisa, and the same with you, Kelly. Where do I go to find XYZ company? Because I'm not coming. This happened at the last trade show I was at. I had a CAM and a board member come up to me and say, we have a very large project going on, or that's going to happen. And we are here to meet a good contractor. And I just said a little bit like, well, tell me what you got going on. And they said that the CAM told me that the management company she works for, she doesn't like her choice of vendors that she's been kind of steered towards, use these folks. Okay. She did her own due diligence on them, and for some reason doesn't like them. Okay. And to further complicate matters, they hired an engineer, which then an engineer will bring their own pet contractors for recommendations and say, hey, use these people because, you know, these are the ones we found that do good work. Okay. Or are you getting something out of that? But they forget to leave that part out. Okay. So here's what I tell everybody. You're on a board. If you're on a board right now, or you're a manager right now and you're watching this, here's what you do. You go to a CAI show, or you go to a very good industry trade show, and whatever vendor you're looking for, if it's a landscaper, if it's attorney, if it's a roofer, whoever it is, do your own due diligence, find out what it is that you're looking for, and then ask them questions, because you're making a decision now that's independent of any outside influence that you might be getting from anybody. Okay. Because I think all three of us on this call know that probably 80% of the time, if a manager wants something, or if a board wants a recommendation, they're going to look at their CAM for that referral. Okay. Because it's part of their job is to know who the players are. You're on a board or you're a CAM, do it yourself. You're going to meet plenty of good people at trade shows that are not affiliated with anything, and all they do is want to help. So we're currently helping the board right now, and we're helping the manager right now, because they're making their own independent decision by talking like to 6 contractors at the show, and they're doing it by themselves without any other influence. Would you all agree with that? It's a good way to do it.
Well, I think us three probably know how to do due diligence. I think a lot of people don't know how to do due diligence.
You're right.
And I loved when Lisa, I can't remember if it was pre-gaming or during the show where you mentioned, you know, you've got those pre-gaming, which we never do what we did today because it's such an important subject. You have a settlement for a hurricane loss that's, you know, everyone's Xactimate, which is the insurance co-op that helps price everything. You can look it up if you don't know what it is, but they come up with a figure, and then that's what they can spend on that repair. Hopefully it's going to be accurate and covered enough. Somebody else comes in at 5 million. Lisa says, well, my guess, my professional opinion is they're probably missing a lot of stuff if they're coming in at 5 million on a $10 million insurance claim. And she's 100% correct. But a lot of people do go after the lower price. Price is a factor, but you have to know, you know, are they going to continue showing up to do the project? Do they pay their workman's comp? You know, what kind of lawsuits are against them? You know, blah, blah, blah. There's so much stuff for due diligence. And we give classes on it, and so do other companies, to understand how to do due diligence. If that's not your industry, you might not be the right person for that. I'm not advertising for LGC, but I'm saying there's people that do it. And some of our best clients are people that are in the industry, but in another place, and they snowbird here, and they go, let's hire the professionals. I don't know companies down in South Florida. But back to legislation, I want to make sure, I don't want anybody going to jail. If anybody's been doing bad things in the past, stop it today, because there are now mechanisms in place that could really correct your life. And there's no amount of money that makes me want to miss even a rainy day in South Florida.
Okay, there are always going to be bad people out there. Okay, there always have been bad people that have done bad things. Some of them get caught. Some of them pay the price for it. The vast majority of them don't get caught, which is why people do bad things, because they don't think they're going to get caught in the long run. No amount of legislation is ever going to stop people from doing bad things. Okay, but hopefully this will make all the board members more cognizant of what's going on in the world, and for them to engage in that due diligence. But wait, you made like a very, very important point. And these CAMs that work for certain companies, they are under a lot of pressure to use specific vendors. A lot of pressure, and they can get penalized, or maybe not financially penalized, but they can get penalized as far as their, advancement in their career is concerned, for, going outside the norm. So really,
I've seen it. You're right.
It's a sticky wicket.
It all has to go right back to the board. And, as a board, you want to be able to rely upon your CAM. That's why you're hiring them. You're hiring somebody that you feel has the expertise, and that you want someone to be honest with you. But here's what you suggested about interviewing people at trade shows. Here's what I suggest when it comes down, or when you're getting close to a decision on a vendor or service provider for a large project. And then you can conduct the interview in public, have hold a board meeting to conduct the interview.
You bet. You bet.
And that way owners
That's
will be
great.
there. And let me tell you something, owners will not be shy. Okay.
No,
They're going to say,
they won't.
hey, what's in it for Sal on the board,
Right.
if you get this job. And if you have
But
the
board
engineer
members be
and the
polite about it.
contractor, even better, because they have to disclose it. If the manager's there, they got to disclose it. Under this law, has to be disclosed. And if it's not disclosed, that's a big problem for the CAM and the CAM firm. Now, this law doesn't necessarily apply to the contractors, but there are other laws that prohibit contractors from engaging in fraud and giving kickbacks and the like. And, many years ago, there have been contractors and board members and managers that have all gone to jail for engaging in these unsavory practices. It's just a matter of ferreting it out. And it's really not that easy. It is not easy unless you can really compare apples to apples on everything and ask the right questions and then get honest answers to those questions.
Lisa, another thing that I read in the bill was basically a management company can be dismissed for cause literally on the spot if these disclosures are not made. So if you think about that, I mean, there's a lot of risk with the non-disclosure part of it that the management companies would have if they don't do that, and the board can just say you're done, and it can happen immediately. I mean, it's right in the legislation. I've read it.
Yeah, and there are opportunities for the members also to petition to cancel the contract if they, find out there was a conflict that was not disclosed. Then the question becomes, was it disclosed? Was it not disclosed? Then you're still going to have all kinds of arguments over whether or not the contract was terminated properly, what financial penalties are associated with the termination at that point, and nothing is as easy as it may necessarily appear.
For sure.
But
people need to go calm.
Go ahead.
I've had some board members say to me, reading the legislation, I don't think I want to be a board member anymore. I'm gonna go, it's easy. You do the right thing, you're fine. So there's really no exposure if you do the right thing. They're like, well, what if somebody accuses me of doing the wrong thing? I said, do the right thing, and then you'll be fine. And that's what I don't want. We don't want a bunch of people coming out with pitchforks after everybody, because all of a sudden, they think they have a right to, make accusations that aren't necessarily correct. So I'm hoping cool minds stay a part of that. The fact that you can get rid of a property management company at will, there's it better be a darn good reason, because if it isn't, you're really making your property unsettled when you do that. Even when there's a smooth exchange, there's a lot of challenges. So to people to try to do things real quick. The other concern I have is the advance notice now for meetings for the community is too long.
Really?
And
what do you mean?
Sure, I've read in the legislation, it's like 14 days.
Well,
am I correct on that?
It's pretty much been 14 days for membership meetings, for the most part, on both the condo and the HOA side. So the 14, now the fact that you'd have to post it with whatever documents that are going to be considered with the meeting on, if you have a website, and now condos with 25 or more units are going to have a website. HOAs with 100 or more parcels are required now. Well, it's not effective yet, but at some point to have a website. So really, but when you're doing the agenda for a meeting, as long as the documents are available, there's no reason not to post them at the same time that you're posting the meeting notice. Now, sometimes you may not have, let's just say you're voting on a contract and you have to post your notice 14 days in advance. You may not have the actual contract yet, so you have to get that posted for now 7 days at least prior to the meeting if it's going to be something that's going to be voted on by the membership. But really, the meeting notice, I don't find onerous or problematic. What I do find difficult is the machinations that the association needs to go through in connection with its records inspections. So now somebody gives you a list. First of all, record inspections are out of control. Now, I believe records have to be open. I mean, these are not your records. These are the corporate records. So,
Right.
go have at it. Everyone should be able to see, everything unless it's precluded for some privacy reason, like medical records and social security numbers and all that other good stuff. But for the association, so if I get a laundry list of 150 types of records, and now the law really was in the past that I didn't have to cull through the records and find exactly what it was that you were looking for. I just had to say, oh, all of our records are in that box. You're entitled to look through that box or in that file cabinet. I think the law goes a little bit farther now. It requires the associations to keep the records in a way that is easily facilitates finding the documents that they need. What does that mean? You're going to put every invoice for, do you put your invoices by month? Do you put them by vendor? Do you how do you all this entire filing system and invoices, checks, drafts, payment records, deposit slips are all now specifically identified as official records. Well, half of this stuff is done via computer. You don't have deposit slips. You have these ACH transfers going back and forth. And what kind of records do you have to keep of those, right? So somebody gives me a list of 100 things they want to look at. So now you have to have a checklist. When you offer the records for inspection, hey, Mr. So-and-so, come on Thursday, the records will be available for your inspection. You have to have a checklist saying what records you're providing in response to their list and what records are omitted. So I get these picky questions all the time. I want to see the president's expense report with all the backups from November of 2022. Okay. So number one, are you with the same management company that you were with in November of 22? Number two, how are those records maintained? Was it an email that came into the manager and then the manager submitted the check request to its accounting department and then the accounting department just issued the request? Where is that email? Are those emails retained? Where is that stuff saved? How are you supposed to find this stuff? And add insult to injury, what if you have a different management company and the previous records came over in a data file that is completely unsearchable or impossible to navigate? So how are you going to find this stuff, right? So we really need to, and then the whole email thing. Okay, emails as official records. Who's paying to archive all this stuff? Okay, who's archiving all this stuff? Who's paying for all this work? Are the management companies now going to have to hire data control people to figure out ways to make this?
We are frozen.
That's a bummer.
Never had this happen. Wow, we just froze up. I've never had that happen before.
God, Lisa was on such a good roll. Is she out?
Yeah, I guess it was her internet. Oh my God. Hopefully she's going to bounce back in. She was on an incredible roll. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Hopefully she'll call back.
She's back.
I mean,
I apologize. Something happened where I just got kicked off for a second.
I think it's probably the government was coming after you because you were giving out such great information. It's
Oh
okay.
my God,
This stuff happens. Welcome back.
You were on such a roll. Yeah, thank you. I mean, wow, there's a reason why you're our favorite. Just thank you. I mean,
yeah, and then the same thing with the voting stuff too. I mean, for HOAs, well, for fraudulent voting, and that was that whole hammocks thing because, well, meanwhile, I mean, that was terrible. They, I only know from newspaper reports, but there was a big election, huge election. It was called for I don't know, 8 p.m. or something. At 10 p.m., people were still waiting online. Hundreds of people are still waiting online outside the clubhouse waiting to vote. And they said, "Oh, it's too late at night. Everyone's got to go home. We're stopping the election now." So Kelly, what you said, nobody wants to discourage people from being on their board, running for their board. It's a really important job. We want you to be there. And any good intentioned person, we want you to be there. And as long as you do everything that you can do, is a reasonably diligent manner. I mean, you don't have to be Mr. Engineer. You don't have to be Mr. Super Computer Whiz, Mr. Super Accounting Financial Whiz. You need to
Or
be
Mrs. Attorney.
or the legal scholar, you need to be diligent and you need to do your best. And as long as you're good intentioned and don't have, malfeasance or complete utter neglect, then you're going to be protected. That's why that's why you do have insurance, and that's why you have indemnification from the corporation. You're there as a volunteer.
Yeah. I always tell them at the end of the day, I'll come visit you in prison if you do get, locked up. But,
well, there's definitely always that. Lisa, thanks for coming on. And this is new. It's going to be fluid. There's no one knows what's going to happen, but I'm very grateful for the start of Shark Month that we were able to host you again, and for you to come on and kind of tell us what we're all looking at, because this is really fresh. And hopefully we can have you on again in the not too distant future if you'd like. We really appreciate you.
Well, I look forward to it. And, I have to tell you, having the perspective from people that are on the ground in the industry, that's really valuable, not only to the board members, but really valuable to CAMs. It's important to hear the perspective of other people that you work with in this industry.
Yeah. And especially I like to say, Kelly and I and yourself, we're three veterans of the industry, and have seen a lot. And I think everything that we have in common is, we just want our industry to continue to get better. That is without a doubt. I know you're like that. Kelly's like that. A lot of us are like that. So again, keep up the good work, and it's much appreciated for you making the time during your busy day to come on. Thank you.
Well, thank you. So hopefully I'll be on 200 too, right?
Well, we love that. Hopefully before that.
Yeah, you better be before that. And for people that have the opportunity to see Lisa do legislative updates and other presentations at these, if you're coming for a free breakfast, lunch, or dinner at these events, don't go. But if you're, one thing I missed when I used to be involved with one of the groups over in Pompano over at Galuppi's, and that's how I met Lisa. And I did it for several years. Every month, a lot of the vendors would walk outside when the teaching would happen. I learned so much stuff there. It was so valuable. So if you have those opportunities, don't go for the food. Go for the nourishment of education, because there's power in education, and Lisa's definitely one of the best at giving that information out. So a little sincere plug for you there. So
thank you guys.
We appreciate
have a good one, all.
Everybody, and happy Independence Day tomorrow.
Yep.
Love you all.
Love you all too.
Thanks for 100 episodes there, buddy.
Thank you. It's great.
Bye.